Hey guys, welcome back to Deku Tarot, and today instead of tarot, we're just going to do a little chat on the astrology for October 2020. It is going to be a really big month astrology wise, so I figured instead of taking a ton of time to go through the astrology and all of the monthlies, let's just kind of condense it here into this smaller video and really talk about it because there's a lot going on. This is been a year of a lot of astrology. I mean, I feel the past couple of years it's just been ramping up, and October 2020 is a big one. And I'm sure if you watch other astrology videos, you've seen that, or if you've been reading up on the astrology, you're expecting things to kind of pop off and really change this month. And yeah, so just to start it off here, we have three major moon cycles this month. We have a full moon, a new moon, and then another full moon on Halloween. So that first full moon is in Aries. And that's on October 1st. So again, it's really interesting to have a full moon on the 1st and then the 31st. It's a very intense month, and especially for it being on Halloween, like how exciting. So this Aries full moon is going to bring up, I mean, we have Aries retrograding in Mars as well. So it's going to bring up a really, I feel like, aggressive and almost not, I don't want to say negatively volatile because you can use it for good, but it can bring up kind of a volatile nature here. And we're gonna really need to watch ourselves in terms of avoiding others and not really seeing these same issues in ourselves. It's going to bring up a pretty big mirror for us to look at, what we're frustrated about in others may actually be a frustration within ourselves. It's most likely actually coming from within. So again, with this Mars retrograding in Aries, it's going to be bringing up this really intense energy that I feel like a lot of people are going to take it to heart, beating yourself up, getting frustrated that things haven't moved forward or that things haven't progressed the way that we've wanted to. And instead of understanding that sometimes that's just the circumstances, we're going to take it's going to take a personal toll on us and our psyche and be like, we might even be like, why did I do this? Why did I let this happen? Why haven't I gotten these things done? And it might actually kind of force some people to buck up. And I don't like using that word all the time, but buck up and instead address issues from the past and do what needs to get done. So it can be a very energy. I feel like it's going to be energetic, and yet at the same time with Mars retrograde in Aries, it's going to feel like a weird, like you're going to need to push through a little bit, okay? So that's on September 1st. On September 2nd, we have Venus entering Virgo, bringing a little bit more of that Virgoan, steady, committed nature to love. So that's pretty good. We also have Venus later on in the month entering Libra on the 28th, where love is going to look beautiful. It's going to be gorgeous. It's going to be all those Libran things of balance and harmony. So, because again, and that's going to feel really good as well because Venus is Libra's ruler is Venus. I'm saying it backwards there. But then on October 3rd, we have something interesting going on. We have Pluto going direct in Capricorn, and that's going to bring forth a lot of change. Pluto has been retrograde for a while, and this is another little thing I want to talk about here actually as we're just at the beginning of the month. Let's talk about Pluto for a second, and let's talk about some really interesting things that I kind of researched and learned more about this week. So interestingly enough, and this is gonna, I feel like if you don't want to listen to this part, this is more about what's going on now, like in a more global sense, and especially in the sense of America, with the astrology and it mirroring in 1963. So again, if you look at 1963 and the astrology of what was happening then, it's very interesting that Saturn was also in Aquarius. We also had the North Node in Cancer and the South Node in Capricorn, which was how it was for a while. I mean, of course, the nodes have changed now, but it was like that at the beginning of the year and for about half the year. So that's really intense and interesting. But it's really interesting the things that happen and that how they have kind of mirrored what is happening now at that in that year. Just for example, I think it was the British Labour Party elected a new leader, and they did that again this year. America also was uniting in protests from LA to DC under MLK to protest racism and segregation. And I mean, you got to say that's pretty prevalent to what has been happening this year, and in terms of what has happened, not just in America, but how the reaction globally, how we've taken this message and how we've taken this movement. It's very interesting, right? And it's really also interesting, that Pluto in the Roman myth is, one man trying to take over the world, if you know the myth of that. And I'm going to say things, and if you don't agree with it, fine, whatever. But if you're QAnon and all that stuff, you can get right the fuck off my channel. Like, I don't care. But because these are just real facts, and this is how I feel, and it's my channel, and I'm allowed to say what I want to say. But we're in this Jupiter-Pluto site, Jupiter-Pluto. I always say Pluto. I need to like make a design that says Pluto on it because I say it so often. So we're in this Jupiter-Pluto cycle, and if we have this leader that's overreaching in his power and corruption, despite advice and being called out, you know, from other countries, other people in power, etc., eventually it's going to lead to the downfall. Again, if you know the story of Pluto. But Pluto often affects leadership, and that's something that you know if you know a lot more about astrology. It always kind of depends again, on what the leader decides and chooses to do. Astrology doesn't control everything. But if you want to continue to, you know, take over, you know, Pluto the media, Pluto the protesters, Pluto the Supreme Court, the virus, you know, it's eventually going to crumble and fall down. You can't just be one man trying to take over the world, especially if you look at all these astrological things at play here, because every time again that you see Jupiter in the same sign as Pluto, I almost said Pluto again. So every time you see Jupiter in the same sign as Pluto, any power abuse is going to come right up front, and it will have to end because it's right there. So it's really interesting to see how this kind of stuff is going to be playing out this month. I'm really interested to see, not even just this month, but the rest of the year too. So yeah, anyways, let's get back into the other astrology. That was just something I found really interesting, and something I'd like to see, you know, play out this month, or I'd like to, you know, really keep tabs on, and I might try to do that over on my Instagram. And do check out White Light Astrology. He's a much better astrologer than me, and he goes through like every day, and we'll have a lot more to talk about, I think, with the Jupiter, Pluto, all that's going on between them there. So it's really interesting. We also have this Pluto direct. I already talked about the Pluto direct in Capricorn there on the 3rd. So let's take it back to the beginning of the month here. On the 7th, we have Mercury and Scorpio opposite Uranus and Taurus. That's going to be an interesting one. I think that is going to bring up a lot of, I don't want to say secrets, but I guess because I don't know, so I feel like secrets, Scorpio are two words that a lot of people just associate with each other. But with Uranus and Taurus being, you know, the proverbial bull in the china shop, and, you know, bringing unpredictable, unexpected change and a desire for freedom and shifting in these areas where we're so stuck, where we're especially very grounded and in the more earthy Taurus sense there. So when you have this really interesting Mercury and Scorpio, you know, being opposite, it brings up, and Mercury hasn't gone retrograde at that point. So it's going to, I think, kind of force us to talk about deeper things, have those deeper conversations, talk about hidden emotions, hidden agendas, our hidden feelings on things we have been keeping from others. And it could come out very sporadically. So if you're having a fight with a loved one or a partner, make sure that you're keeping tabs on what you're saying, and that you're not going to say something that might, you know, blow the whole house apart there. You know what I mean? So that's going to be an interesting, and I feel like very volatile day, and I think it will also be that way for the media. So keep an eye out there. You know, again, October 7th, wouldn't be surprised if we hear some crazy things then. Wouldn't be surprised if things suddenly really shift, and, you know, secrets behind, you know, how things have been, you know, some things that we didn't know, etc. We just might be finding stuff out. Let's just leave it at that, okay? So keep me up to date on October 7th, guys. October 10th, we have Venus in Virgo trining Uranus and Taurus. Again, bringing up, I think, especially if you're in committed relationships, or your relationship to commitment in relationships is going to be, I don't want to say questioned, but maybe reevaluated, change. You might, you know, shift one way or the other. It can bring up some changes there, again, if in terms of relationships, in terms of what you love, in terms of all those things that Venus rules, maybe how we love work and how we treat it, etc. We could you know, make some major breakthroughs on that day as well, I'm feeling. On October 14th, we have Mercury retrograde in Scorpio beginning, and that one doesn't really end until November. I read the 3rd, but I've also read the 1st. I might not be right on that one, but I mean, it takes a bit for it to go direct anyway. So I do know that, you know, Mercury is supposed to be going officially direct on the election day in America. That should be interesting. So that's going to bring up a lot of, again, because it's in Scorpio, it's going to bring up all these really intense karmic issues coming up to be rehashed, to be dealt with, to be really talked about. It's going to bring up really the roots of messy problems will be really seen and be forced to be reckoned with. You're going to have to talk about some things. We're going to have to kind of go back and relive maybe even some trauma, some internal pains there. But anyways, October 16th, we have that new moon in Libra. I think that's going to be a really defining moment, and I don't really want to get into it. I feel like there's so much that could happen with that new moon in Libra, and I do think it is going to be a kickoff for, because again, it's in Libra, and then we have that full moon in Taurus. So we have these two Venus ruled signs, the new moon and then the full moon. And it's going to bring up, again, I think a lot about money, a lot about love, etc. But also, it's going to bring up some new chapters in terms of what's going on right now. And I don't really want to be the one to say this or that or the other thing on that one. So we'll just see how that new moon in Libra goes. I think it's going to be a moment. I think it's going to be a moment where a lot of things are talked about in a way that maybe they haven't been before. I think it's going to be a time where, you're going to be making some big choices based on what is happening around then. So I'm just going to leave it at that because I think it's going to be explosive, and we're just going to move on now. October 23rd, we have the sun in Scorpio. So the sun moves into Scorpio then, and we get into Scorpio season there, which is always great. I love Scorpio season. It brings up, all those scorpionic fixed water energies of really going deep, of really getting into your psyche, I feel like a lot of people almost associate Scorpios. I know that, Pisces is 12th house, but I think that Scorpio is very, psychic and talks about the other world, talks about life after death, talks about death itself, resurrection. It's all that kind of energy. So we're going to be bringing up all the emotional conversations, deep feelings that are going to be felt in Scorpio season. We're stepping into all that there. And it will be, again, as it always does, highlighting secrets and truth, because that's what it looks for. On October 25th, shout out to my babe, because that's his birthday. But the sun in Scorpio is conjuncting Mercury in Scorpio that day. And that's going to be a day where, again, I wouldn't be surprised if we get some big secrets revealed, deeply held secrets or baggage coming up and out. And it's going to be maybe a bit of a messier day in terms of what we hear, how we react. So make sure to try to remember that you can control how you react in a situation. On the 28th, we got two things happening. I already mentioned Venus moving into Libra. And then we also have Mercury retrograde entering Libra. So it's gone all the way back now through Scorpio back, and now it's retrograding in Libra for a little bit here, for not even that long, like a few days. So it's going to bring up more of a harmonious kind of nostalgia. It's going to bring up, more peaceful things. I feel like that's when we start, remembering books and books and friends and games and stuff from our youth that we miss, and maybe reconnecting with those things, trying to see, why is that coming up again? Do I want to play those things again? Do I want to read that book again? Do I want to contact those people again? And why, and how can it, fit into my life now and maybe help me moving forward? So it can be a kind of a nicer retrograde, I would say, when Mercury is retrograding in Libra versus Scorpio. So yeah, and then on the 31st, like I mentioned at the very beginning, we have that full moon in Taurus, and we also have the sun in Scorpio opposite Uranus in Taurus that day. So that's going to be a big day. That's going to be a big day. Let's just talk about that. And also, we haven't had a full moon on October 31st. I think it was since 19, and I'm probably going to I don't know. I'm not even going to guess the date because I read it somewhere, so I heard it somewhere, and I don't remember, but it's been a very long time. I want to say 60 years or something. So that's really, really cool. And I think it's going to make a fun one, even though I think obviously Halloween's going to be different this year because of COVID. It will be a really beautiful day of grounding, I think, of, finding peace, because again, Taurus is a very peaceful energy in nature. I feel like, and I always hear this on podcasts and other things, like people that don't know Taurus or don't know astrology, they're always like, what are Tauruses about? And I was listening to one and they were just like, I don't know, I think they're loyal or something. These two girls were talking about Tauruses, and neither of them knew how to define it, because they're like, I don't know, I think they're loyal and wise or something. So it might be that kind of energy coming up here. But again, Taurus is a very calm, peaceful nature is what I'm trying to say. And sometimes I think other people are like, oh, Tauruses are boring, they're hard to define in those kinds of ways. But there's a certain sense of peace to the bull and the nature of the bull, and being able to just connect with nature, eat some good food, relax, and find some type of grounding and a solid way forward in all this mess right now. So I do think it's going to help us also reset in terms of finding a way forward, finding our grounding, especially, with that sun opposition, the sun in Scorpio opposition. Whoa. with Uranus and Taurus, I just think it can be an intense day, I think, of revelations, of emotional revelations, of what we want and where we're headed and what we need to do. So it's going to be a very driving full moon, and it's going to bring up, I think, a really nice, peaceful and grounded energy that we can be able to really get with in the midst of all this craziness, especially again if you're in America. Let's take that full moon and like, let's chill on Halloween, because I think we're going to need that for the few days after or however long after it's going to be. So anyways, that's just kind of a little astrological overview I wanted to do for the month, just so I didn't have to go through it in all the tarot videos, because there is so much going on, and I'm going to try to keep up to date, you know, throughout the month with the astrology. Probably over on my Instagram, maybe I'll do another video, but it's just, it's going to be a doozy. This end of the year is going to be a doozy. Hold on to your butts. Love you guys so much. Check out your monthly readings for October. I'm going to try to get those out all as soon as possible. Sorry, Cancers, again, for not getting your September reading. Because of that, you guys will be the first to get your October. So, love you guys so much. Namaste. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and check me out over on Instagram at Deku Tarot.